All right. Well, today, welcome to the Pure Light Project podcast. My name's Andrea Mai, and I have on my wonderful friend and mentor and brother in spirit, Gene Skaggs. I've known Gene for about 3 years. I was just thinking about it this morning. It's probably
Mm,
3 years,
wow.
almost almost to the time we met. Um,
Mm,
and the reason I'm having Gene on today, we've got a lot we can talk about, but a year ago, a little over a year ago, Gene wrote a book that I've been wanting to talk to him and have him on the podcast about. I had the honor of being a little bit part of the production side of that.
a
But
lot.
and so this book, yeah, I got to change my view for myself. But this is Gene's book. It's called The Brighter Side of Darkness, The X Factor. And this was, oh, it's just a tremendous thing. I keep it on my shelf with next to the books that I write because it blesses me and it touches me to have it there. So anyways, but we can start on a little lighter note.
Okay.
um, so Gene, I met you through Quantum Touch, and who knew you were going to be 5 minutes from my house and we were going to be friends when I just needed to expand my horizons a little and get some help. So, but, but so tell people a little bit about you and your background, just like the high level stuff, that you want to share.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Key West, Florida, and I moved to Nashville in '79. And I went to Unity Church and really got into that. And that same week, I started doing A Course in Miracles, was introduced to A Course in Miracles, and I studied that. And anyways, I teach it now. I teach it on Zoom every Wednesday night. And I've written 4 books on A Course in Miracles. But what we're going to be really kind of mainly focusing on today would be the books that I received from my youngest son, Anderson, who passed away in 2009, August the 6th, died of congenital heart disease. He just graduated from University of Tennessee in May and passed away in August. And he given me 3 books, and I also do talk therapy. I also do a process called Psyche and access the bars. But my biggest thing is Quantum Touch and Anderson's books. That's what I really like to focus on. And I'm a certified Quantum Touch Level 2 instructor, which is only 16 of us in the continental United States. There's others
Yeah.
throughout the world, but in the continental United States, I'm one of only 16 that can. And Andrea took the classes, and she's a certified quantum touch facilitator. So fabulous person. Does, and again, you know where she fabulous meditations, and she's being kind. She had a little bit to do with the book. She had a lot. The cover is hers, that we picked out. She picked out, and I agreed wholeheartedly. And uh, the person actually looks a little bit like Anderson from the back, which is kind of strange. So we'll get into that all.
Yeah.
But that's a little
Yeah.
bit of background about me.
Yeah, well, and I know when I first met you, I mean, I did levels 1 and 2 of quantum touch with you, and you know, it was really incredible, and we've gone on to do a lot of things, but first and foremost, you just come with your heart all the time and a crazy sense of humor, but your heart rings out. And I loved it. So let's talk about this book for a
Mhm.
few minutes here. See where we go. When you wrote this, if I remember right, you'd received some of it.
I
Um,
received, by the time you got a hold of it, I probably had received about 3/4 of it. And let me explain to you what I mean by I receive.
yeah.
I can't speak for any other author. I'm probably different than any of them. I kind of get information from Anderson and myself, and it's kind of like getting all the ingredients to make a nice German chocolate cake. but they're not in any order. So it just helped, chapter 14 could be the title of the book, so it's not in any order. And probably the reason why I picked Andrea and to kind of get the book going, because I read some of her other material and I just loved the way she put things together. And she said, I come from a heart. She definitely comes from her heart. And, I think that's what people resonate with, how someone makes you feel, not what they
Yeah.
say or what they do, but how do they make you feel? And, I just felt that we had this real deep connection, and she honored. Now, let me just say Anderson. When I say Anderson, that's my youngest son. And I mentioned it had
Yeah.
passed away, and she felt him, and she gave me some feedback on that. So, at some level, I felt at the beginning she was, I'm not going to say a co-author, but a nice coach, to guide me. Hey, you need to go a little bit over here. You need to do this. This is too much. You need to clarify this, because after you do something for so long, like quantum touch and, teaching a course in miracles and studying it since 1979, when you say something, you think other people understand
Yeah.
it, and they don't. And she was really good at that at the beginning for me. Hey, you need, this is not understandable for the average person out there.
Yeah.
So we need to clarify this. So that was extremely helpful. So I think she helped take it from what I would consider to a good book to a fabulous book.
It
So,
is
yeah,
actually a fabulous book. I was sitting down
yeah,
with it again yesterday, and I spent so much time proofing it with you
right.
and all of that. And like, I was really familiar with you and your heart. And um, I'd done some of the Course in Miracles with you kind of right that first year that we met, and was familiar with a lot of, I guess, the way the message is delivered,
The
right?
terminology.
But yeah, the terminology, but like it's a lot. And I remember you telling me on a couple of things, it's like, this one isn't actually meant for you've got to be ready basically to come in. And it's probably not for somebody brand new to
Yeah.
this material. It might be if their heart is
Mhm.
resonating with it,
Right.
but there's a lot of but it's when I was reading it, it's funny, this morning as I was flipping through it, drinking my tea, I was like, how interesting that for me it felt so much um easier, right?
Mhm.
So where we've come inside a year is pretty amazing. The way language, and that's why it was really important for me to talk to you now, because I think a year ago, even a year ago, maybe it was not quite time, and it is written for right now.
Yeah.
I've never felt that more.
Mhm.
When I'd like to talk real quick about, so you, Anderson, I loved how you've always said it, when he laid his body down, it was 2009, you said, right? So how did that process begin for you of receiving messages from him? Because that's
Right.
really key to
Right.
this.
It is. It sure is. Well, you don't really get this so much in this book, that the question you just asked me. You'll get it in Anderson's first book, which is Anderson Speaks. And his second book is Anderson Speaks Again. Uh, but I really would recommend people getting Anderson's first book also, because it gives you a closeness to him that you're probably not going to get any other way, because you get to know him as a person. And when he went to sleep and just didn't wake up, and the pain is indescribable. I remember, it was almost like, this has got to be a dream. This isn't happening, and I went through all
Yeah.
kinds of stages, and this process, probably in, I'd say, in 4 hours, I just went through numerous phases, like, I'm bringing him back. I know who I am. I'm going to bring him back. He went through that. And then, after a while, reality checks in. He ain't coming back, you know. And I just said, I just had a little conversation with God. I said, okay, God, I'm going to make something good come of this, so you can check me the friggin' out of here. I didn't use the word
Yeah.
friggin', but you know what I was using. And, and I meant it. And I said, I prefer to go. I really was, I said, I've done enough. I said, I prefer to go, but if I'm going to stay, I'm going to make something good come. And within 24 hours, he started giving me messages. And unlike this book was a lot easier to take down. The first book was extremely difficult because of the pain of just losing your son. Uh, I would sit there on the computer and have to play some of the music that he liked, and I'd get all emotional and I'd
Yeah.
bite the bottom of my lip so hard that I would want it to bleed. And then I would regain my composure. And it was as if he came to me, encompassed from the back, and just and come inside my body. And I would type what the messages he would give me. And if I didn't type something right, the energy would just stop. And I'd go back and erase the last sentence, and then it would pick up. So that was kind of the first book. By the time I got to his third book, it's a lot easier after about, I'd say, the first initial, because I was so used to being in pain writing, but I didn't have to do that after about, just very, very early on in the taking down of the book, and by the time Andrea got a hold of it, definitely I wasn't in that state. But, again, I want to reiterate that, she helped me see stuff that I'm not going to use the word novice, but I don't know what other word to use, because even in this book, even I would go, I would cringe at some of the stuff that he would have, dictate to me. And it was like, and then, I'll get the message, I'm not here to decipher what needs to go in the book and what doesn't. He gives some pretty strange out there predictions, like, if everything goes smooth, there's really two ways a planet can go. It can really go in a disastrous area, or it can really go in a fabulous area. There's no more in between, and as Andrea pointed out, time like a year ago, we're in it now. You always say 2012, and this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Well, there's no dawning, and it's not coming, it's here. We're in it right now. So we don't have the luxury of time. He says if everything goes right, there'd be like fruit trees that can have an apple and an orange and another fruit on the same tree. It's just in the human body how it will change, and how we're to interact and different things like that. So
Yeah,
you know,
it's
again,
really like reading some of the things, they've stayed with me uh throughout this whole time. Just notions about uh, like how our bodies will shift if we choose to, you know, some of it, and don't like, there's a lot of stuff that's actually very accessible for a lot
yeah,
of people.
right.
Absolutely, right? And I think it's a
90%
time
of
at
it is.
yeah, it's a time where, we're here to lean into our highest aspects. We don't get to
Mhm.
be small anymore. And if you
Right.
are, know it's a choice, and
Mhm.
we can reach into the highest places within ourselves.
Mhm.
And this invites you to do that.
Right.
You know, and it's not to say that um yeah, it inspires you to do that.
Mhm.
Um yeah, so I want to just share a little bit. Like, I know um Gene was probably the first person I had personally met who brought in what we'd probably call a channeled book, right? A channeled message. And
Mhm.
he's brought three of them in. And I can tell you that, like, we joked about it a lot. Like, I know Gene, and when Gene's writing and when Anderson's writing or communicating, like, you knew the difference,
Yeah.
right? Like, it was a next level. Can you talk about,
Yeah.
like, why would people want to pay attention to this message? Who was Anderson. Who is
Mhm.
he? Talk about that a little.
Well, I appreciate that. It's true. Not only did Andrea say it, but the lady who helped in Anderson's first book said almost the exact same thing. Basically, I think what both of them are saying, when you write, it's just average. When Anderson writes, it's fabulous. And I never took it personally. And I agree with them. I do. I agree with you. I'm okay. I'm okay. But I'm kind of a matter of factly type guy. And Anderson kind of draws it out. And he uses a lot of times he would put the adjective after the noun, so it's just a little different reading. But I want to really stress what Andrea brought up, and I'm glad she brought this up. The whole book isn't hard. I'd say about 90% of it, if you're halfway open, you'll say, yeah, I kind of get it. But there's going to be about 10% of it's going to stretch you, because it stretches me. And I think I'm about one of the openest minded white male heterosexual males out there. I think I'm about as open as you're going to get. And even this kind of stretched me. But I want to read a couple paragraphs. Is that okay with
Yeah,
you?
absolutely.
This one talks about it. This is how the change of the energy. Remember karma. Karma is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if you do something bad, you got to pay it off. Well, remember, we're talking about energy here. And if you create something at a certain vibrational resonance, if you stay in that same vibrational resonance, you will have to pay it off. And that's the old Newtonian physics way of paying off your debts. Now, what happens is when you raise your energy, which Andrea was alluding to earlier, when you raise your energy, you are in a different frequency. It's kind of like if you're on channel 2 and you don't like what's on there, trying to change it and fix it is difficult. If what you like is on channel 4, you have a remote in your hand and you just got to hit the button. So he talks about karma, and I think this is one of the best examples. So let me just read to you 3 paragraphs. We want you to look more closely at the way karma is explained on your planet. It is if as every deed, excuse me, let me start it. It is if your every deed that was not in alignment with love will require payment to balance out your misaligned thoughts in the future. Naturally, if you go back and think of all the actions which were guided by the old Newtonian thoughts, the payment of all those is overwhelming. Thus, it's almost impossible to conceive of ever getting out of debt. Luckily, this is not how one has to pay off their debt, unless you believe that it is the only way. In reality, there are not countless bills, thoughts that need to be taken off the books, but only one: the forgetting of who you are as a glorious child of God. Every thought that is not in alignment with this love is just a thought that emanates from the false self. And the commonality among all of them is that they are not congruent with your authentic self. When you remember who you are as a glorious child of God, you step out of the misaligned frequency of the egoic mind and thus are instantly released from your karmic debt. We are not saying that karma doesn't exist, because it does, but it exists on a frequency not in alignment with love. When you raise your energy above the karmic field and step into a thought system of love, you negate your karmic debt. I think that is pretty amazing. So it's all about raising your energy, remembering who you are. You're at a different frequency. You are a new you. Technically, you can almost put a side note on this book. This is actually the birthing of a new human.
Yeah.
We are actually, instead of us, the whole planet shutting down and putting and starting all over again, what's happening is they're taking us and reprogramming us right now for the new human. Your DNA is actually changing.
Yeah, it's pretty tremendous. The physical shifts we're all going
Yeah.
through, and DNA, what I've heard over and over, right? That there are the strands that are the physical, and then there is the DNA that is actually the spiritual
Right.
DNA, right? And that's like it's all being upgraded, right?
Let me elaborate a little bit on that. Thank you there.
Yeah,
This is quantum physics now. This
yeah,
isn't some pot smoking hippie from California telling you this. This is quantum physics. About 20, 25 years ago, you would have said that you were 99 point and then 12 nines afterwards, empty space. And you're only, the rest of that's only matter. What they've found out now is that 99.129 is actually energy. You are 99.129 energy. Albert Einstein, when he said E equal MC squared, E is energy, MC squared is everything else. So everything is energy. And that's why quantum physics says nothing changes till you change it energetically. You just move things around if you do it at the form level, matter to matter. And
yeah,
that's why nothing much changes. You get rid of Bill, and here comes Mike. You get rid of Mary, here comes Sue. It's the same issues over and over and over again. Uh, and this quantum energy allows for what Anderson calls a quickening of this remembrance of who we are. And then
yeah,
when you remember who you are and you're in alignment with love, then you're intertwined with everyone and everything. And there's nothing outside of you. You are literally one with everything. And, we're having to go from a Newtonian type body and thought system to a quantum type body, and it's going to take a little bit getting used to it. The example he gives us, like birthing a child, it's got to be a little painful, stretches you somewhat and all these things, but the rewards are worth it. But it is a little pain involved. And this is
yeah,
what we're going through. And the whole book is about looking at pain not as pain. Because when you look at it as pain, then you're in the karmic field. You're going to have to pay it off. But all the body is doing is what Anderson's telling us here. The body is just like your GPS, is telling you something. So if you got a pain here, it's telling you that you have a misaligned thought, and it's trying to get your attention to get your thoughts lined up. So then
yeah.
the pain subsides naturally.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up because I just did a flip, right? Just to
Mhm.
see where I opened up to, and it was talking very much about that, about our relationship to pain. And I do a lot of work with that, with people, with,
Mhm.
clients and students, like how we perceive pain when we stick a label on it or we attach it to a memory, and the difference between the physical response and the emotional response and the energetics of it. A stubbed finger can just be, you know, a throbbing blood. It can be, oh, I remember when my brother hit me with a hammer. It
Mhm.
can be, it can be, we wrap all these stories into it. Or it can just be, oh, this is the sensation. It's uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? It hurts, like there's physical pain,
Right.
but it's like all of those stories we wrap into what this throbbing finger is. And it could just be like blood, and flesh kind of
Mhm.
fighting each other, for the
Mhm.
space. So yeah, but there was a piece in here where you were talking very much about that, about can can we basically see pain just without assigning a meaning to it, I think is what you were
Let me read
talking.
a couple paragraphs that talks
Yeah.
about that. Okay. It says, we want you to look more closely at the way, well, not that one, I'm sorry. That's one we did. There we go.
This is chapter 6.
Uh, what chapter is this? No, this is chapter 5, chapter 6. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No pain, no gain. We have all heard these are similar words. One must first look closely at the word pain. It generates numerous feelings, all definitely nowhere near the frequency of love. For the egoic mind, the singular purpose of pain is to keep you from who you are as a glorious child of God. Oh, it takes countless forms, but all with the same intent. All this is accomplished when you call it pain. This book centers around looking at pain from a different perspective. You can call it whatever you want, but the meaning you ascribe to the pain will be the determining factor in what transpires in your life. And I think that's a key right there.
I
What,
think that you tapped into my brain,
yeah, I
man,
did.
because that's the exact section I read this
Well,
morning.
in all honesty, I wasn't going there, but when you said chapter 6, that's what I went
I
to.
was like, I just did what somebody, when I remember when I was going through the Course in Miracles with somebody called it the Holy Flip, right?
Holy
And I
flip,
was like,
yeah,
that's literally where I was this
yeah,
morning. So that's
right.
hilarious.
Yeah, so what purpose do you want to give it? If you
Yeah.
want to blame someone, now watch this, if you want to blame someone, now you become a victim.
Yeah.
See, and as Anderson says, you chose to check in at this time, in
Yeah.
this most glorious time. This is the potential to be the most glorious time on this planet ever, right now. And you
Yeah.
chose, so you can't say you're a victim. We chose it. And so we had this wonderful opportunity to experience. What do you want to call it? So if I call it pain, then I'm blaming some person, some situation, or my body. And remember, my body is outside of me. Quantum, this is quantum physics. You have what they call an energy field, which is right above your head, about 3 feet above your head, about 3 feet in diameter. I call it the mother energy field. That's not what they call it. And then you got the body, it's another energy field. And there's frequencies up here in this, what I call the mother energy field. And there's always a corresponding frequency in the body. And what happens is if you change the frequency, let's just say your shoulder's bothering you, and you take a pill and it numbs the pain, that frequency up in this mother energy field doesn't change. And that will have to get projected down on the body someplace. You might not experience the shoulder pain, but you might have monetary difficulty or relationships. You're going to
Yeah.
experience pain. And so that's why we have to heal it up there. That's why you want to give pain you want to look at your shoulder and say, what are you trying to show me? Andrea did a beautiful job. What is it trying to show you? Most of the time, I'm speaking for me, I don't get anything when I say that because I'm in pain. It's usually when I do something what I call mindless activities. I know this is going to sound strange, but I love washing dishes. It's a mindless activity. You just sit there and and I usually get all kind of information. So I probably get the information what my shoulder's trying to show me while I'm washing the dishes or taking
Yeah.
a walk or something like that.
Yeah. 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 Those activities, it's really where I think we just kind of zero out a little.
Mhm.
You're not necessarily numbing out, you're just focused, but like there's just some nice space, and you're not thinking about it. You're not trying
Mhm.
to logic or rationalize your way into things. You're just open, and
Mhm.
you're doing the dishes,
Right.
and suddenly you get that insight that
Mhm.
that oh, that's what this is, you
Right.
know. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I
I want
like
to
what you said about not thinking your way into it. And this is going to sound strange too, that every other week I go to the laundromat. I have a washer and dryer, but I go to the laundromat because I just like going to the laundromat. It's a little routine right there, and I get to chill out, and you meet some interesting characters at the laundromat. So, no, I mean, there really are some real nice people there. I mean, it's just
I love it.
amazing that you just sit there and you just watch people how they interact, and they really try and take care of each other. So I enjoy the laundromat and washing dishes.
I love that. See, I've known you 3 years and I didn't know about the laundromat. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, so let me read some of these
Okay.
chapter titles. So time as we know it is speeding up. The new human species, which you alluded to, and is very true. Breath and the creating of energy, the shadow, the X factor, the
I
perceived.
love I love the shadow.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
nice paragraph.
It was good, and I love how I actually was reading through that a little bit this morning too, because everybody I think comes at it. That's what's so beautiful about all of us doing this together is we each come through our lens, through our
Right.
experience, right? And so how you might describe it is different from how I might describe it, but there's elements where it overlaps like a good Venn diagram, and it's like you might say something that somebody else can hear it, right?
Mhm.
Or receive it, or, however you receive, versus the way I say it, somebody else might, or we come together and we're like, oh, when we put the pieces together at a potluck, and suddenly it's like, oh, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh.
oh,
Let me say one
um,
more thing about you when you did that,
yeah,
uh, and because you bring so many things to mind. I want to say this, when Andrea was helping me put it together, she inspired me and took me to another level and allowed me to take down more dictation that I don't think I would have been able to open up to if it would not have been for her energy. So I want to thank her in that area.
oh, well, thank you. I
Yeah.
remember there's actually, I was the first, when you first gave it to me, right? And I came back to you with some notes, and I had been sitting at a cafe, um, with a friend of mine, and then we kind of broke out into each focusing on our own stuff. And she has this hilarious picture of Andrea, the editor, right? And I think it's floating around somewhere. But now, when I first read it, it was much more, it was, even though you'd been through it a number of times, you felt like it was, when I gave you some notes back, it was like, oh, you know what? And that's kind of that
Yeah,
moment. You
right.
gave
That's what
it
I
to
was
me
thinking.
thinking you were done. That was like in June, I think, of last year. And then we, then you came back like about 2 or 3 months later, and you had brought in somebody who could really help you. Like, she was passionate about helping
Mhm,
you with it.
mhm,
Uh, you know, for me, it was, at that time, it was like, boy, I gotta like turn everything else off, and I gotta like put on this hat, because this material is rich, it's meaningful, and it needs full attention. There was no half-assing your way through this
right.
manuscript, right? Not that I half-assed
I
the
know, I
next
know.
one,
Yeah.
but there was no, you couldn't, this called all of us into a greater stretching,
Mhm,
of our ability to help you bring it
mhm.
in
Right.
fully. And so that was what was so exciting.
Mhm,
I was so tickled when you're like, wait, I think there's more,
mhm. Yeah,
and because you were like, I think we're done, we're ready to
yeah.
go. And it's like, oh, no, we're
No,
not.
no, no.
But that's when you,
Yeah,
like, I remember that's when you came alive in the
yeah.
process. Man, you came alive. You were just like, just bouncing out of your skin every time I'd see you. You were so energized by it. And I
Mhm,
remember you saying it was like the first time you felt really, um just excited to actually sit down and write. It wasn't like
mhm.
maybe a chore or something. Can
Well,
you
no,
talk?
it wasn't like Anderson's other books wasn't a chore, but they were just painful
Yeah.
emotionally to take him down because it was still so raw, the loss of him. And then when I got through about, I don't know, a third of the book, I'm just coming up with a figure here. After that, it was enjoyable. It became enjoyable. And I think Andrea's energy really helped me go from one place of just taking it down to being actually a co-author of it. And this is
Yeah.
of his other two books, I just put him down strictly as the author, and this one I co-authored it because I felt it was a lot of it me in there also.
Yeah.
So, and he told me to do it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you
And
had a
it's,
hand raised there.
yeah, I don't know. Did you raise your hand?
No,
Did
I didn't.
Anderson raise his hand? I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Okay. All right. No, I haven't touched anything. Unless it's Anderson.
um, let me just show you this on the back of the book.
Mhm.
We put a beautiful painting that Gene had, and we were able to get it. And so, for those of you who, this was Anderson in his prime,
Yeah.
and it was tremendous. And um, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't do this, the kind of work that I did with Gene, as much anymore. It comes It's only when somebody has a truly exceptional project, and there's to be a reason to take me outside of my own writing, you know.
Yeah.
But just every element of it was so
Mhm.
this is what co-creating is, you know. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, you did the work, right? We were just here to be part of it, but um to support you in your process and in staying open. So talk to me about, because I remember there was a few things, and I think there's even a section in the book where it wrote like Gene is very uncomfortable
Mhm.
writing this. Do you remember
Yeah,
those?
yeah. I know what he was talking about what the new human, how we're going to physically change. We'll have the capacity to walk through walls,
Sure.
have the capacity if you cut your finger off to grow it back. You know, there's where the trees growing, like, like I say, an orange, an apple, and a grapefruit on the same
Yeah.
tree. Just all these things, and we're gonna, you're gonna start to change. You will have less bodily hair. Your lungs will be bigger. Your breath will be different.
Yeah.
Your breath will be, uh, it won't be as rapid. It'll be slower. So all these things will, and how we actually sustain the body as far as food. He didn't really elaborate
Yeah.
much on that, but that he said that's going to change also. Uh, and I don't know. I don't know if I felt I didn't block anything, but if I was going to look at it and really critique myself, if there was probably one area maybe I didn't fully open, and I don't know if I did or not. I'm just thinking, not right now. This is the first time I thought of this.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me
Yeah.
15 minutes ago, I wouldn't have thought of this. But I don't know if I blocked as far as the way we will maintain the body. He didn't elaborate. Let me just put it that way. And
Yeah.
I don't think I blocked it, but I don't know. I that's just an honest, statement there. But he didn't elaborate on how we maintain the body will change. And I'm thinking what I'm getting right now, what he's telling me is the reason why I didn't, he didn't give it to me is because it's constantly changing. So
Yeah.
whatever they say isn't carved in stone.
Right.
It's going to change because as the body changes, it will change. You'll need less sleep, he says in here. We won't need as much sleep. Uh, this but it's all changing. So you can't say this is what's going to take place because that will change.
Well,
So it's
and I think the thing too, you know, in my experience of it and like what I work with, it's still very much a matter of choice, you
mhm,
know. I
yeah,
mean, to the extent, right? Like you could get to the point where you live on air, right? A
right.
breatharian, right?
Breatharian.
You know, you could be eating fruit, you could be eating greens, you know, you may
Mhm,
not need these things. I've been exploring something that came in that was extremely strange and unexpected with
mhm,
plasma, you know, with this plasmic energy, which I'm still working with. Never would have saw that coming in a million
mhm,
years unless I experienced it first, right?
mhm, right,
So I remember that was the thing, that was the thing, the breath.
mhm,
Because I've been working with that. It happened around the same time, you know, and as I was working on this with you, it's like I got to experience, there were moments when Anderson I was not necessarily like seeking, I wasn't posing questions, right? But his presence, it very much was there.
mhm.
And I've had a couple of instances, you know, where you and I have done sessions together, right? And
Mhm.
it was like,
Helping.
oh, whoa, this is like next level wonderful, you know. Uh
I don't know if it was you or not, but I had one lady said, she said, "You got three hands,"
yeah,
but she actually
yeah,
felt another hand on her.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
And I want to say what you said right there. Uh, just about, I would say, just about everyone that has bought his books feel him at some level.
Yeah.
Some people a lot more than others, but it's almost, you can take it to the bank. Somehow he's going to make connection with you.
Yeah.
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 And then the notion of the breath changing our experience of it, right? Like for the
Mhm.
last year, my breath, like really, it did, it's bizarre to some extent, how much it slowed, almost like
Yes.
I had to slow down. And so what it's allowed is this exponential shift in my body. I can run now for the first time
Mhm.
in my life. You
Wow.
know, I can not the rest of my body is like, oh, ow,
Yeah.
sometimes, right? The chiropractor made bank, when I got a little too overzealous with it, because I can breathe now, like through my entire body. And I've been working with the breathing body for quite a few years, but this
Mhm.
was a whole new level of it.
Right.
And so like the predictions and the encouragement of what is possible for us
Mhm.
that are inside the book, um, you know, you might, like, if somebody goes out and picks this book up today and they pick it up and they're reading through it and they're like, wow, I think I've been experiencing that,
Mhm.
right? And so it's beautiful, like, affirmation, I guess, that you're not alone and that this is far greater than one person's experience.
Right.
This is the collective experience.
Yeah.
And
No, I've had that from people. I've gotten back to say, somebody is finally putting down in words what I know or what I feel, So, I think there's a lot of people that feel this. They just don't have an outlet for it, or nobody to talk to. You
yeah,
know, I think most people just got how the weather conversations with people.
yeah,
They really they don't know that there's an option out there of somebody that they can talk to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
talk a little bit about, because so I'll just preface this, like in the last year and a half or so, I started receiving messages, that, and so I want to touch a little bit on, it was really hard for me, quite honestly. It's only in the last couple months that I started sharing specifically these messages that are coming in
Mhm.
from not just me, right?
Mhm.
And that took me over a year to really process, to get because I wanted to make double damn sure that I wasn't, I mean, and so what if we are making it up, we are, but like that's not how I roll. Like I just couldn't, I was
Yeah.
so uncomfortable, and it was kind of cool because it takes a
Right.
lot to get me that uncomfortable. It
Mhm.
showed me elements of myself. But you went
Right.
through this at a time when, um you know, even in the last couple of years, that's become more and more commonplace, right? But then
Mhm.
to show
Right.
up and say, so talk about that and like what it was really like for you, when you got, when that first book came in, and then you're like, okay, it's one thing to take the message in and you're sitting there typing it, but then it's like sharing it.
Right. Well, let me say, when I first started taking it down, I didn't really think it was a book. I thought it was just messages that he was giving me, like for me, like personally for
Yeah.
dad, but then, and then I started feeling uncomfortable. It's like, what has this got to do with me, so to speak? And
Yeah.
he said, Dad, you're not getting it. This is not just for you. This is, for, and I've had people tell me, that have read his books and say, I don't believe that. First of all, I really honestly don't care. I truly mean that from the bottom. I mean, I don't care. You know,
Yeah.
I, uh, but I think if you just come in there with an open mind, in Key West, they have a saying: if you're eating a piece of fish and you get a bone in it, you put the bone aside. You don't throw the fish away. So, you know, so kind of look at this as maybe 140 items on a smorgasbord. And if I'm going to go up there, if they got slimy okra, I don't want it. They got broccoli, uh, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, slimy okra. You can have all of that. I don't want that. But there's a whole lot of other items there that I like. So there might be something in here that might be a little hard to swallow, you know, uh, but just set it aside, and open up, for that. I always say, I don't care anyone you meet, there's something you can learn from them.
Yeah.
I don't care who they are. There's something you can learn from. And if you can learn one thing from that person, it was worthwhile, that meeting. So
Yeah.
that's what you give it. What are you trying to show me? And that's what he's telling you in this book. What is the world trying? Because it's trying to show you something. We have to get, it's like your car. You start it up, it's got all these gauges telling me how much gas you got, how many miles it's been, you know, uh, what the temperature is, all these different gauges is talking to you. So we have to get used to the body talking to us because that's
Yeah.
what it's doing, you
Yeah.
know. So,
Yeah.
and it's
It's
awkward at first. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's very but only for us, quite
Yeah.
honestly. You know, I know
And
like
I want to say this, until you told me you was going to have me on your podcast, I really hadn't read the book in probably about 6 months. So
sure.
it was like almost reading it for the first time because, again, like you said, you go back and you're not critiquing it now. You're not thinking, oh, I needs to be a period there, needs to be a comma here, and I
Yeah.
need to do this, and I need to I just got to enjoy the book really for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was almost like reading some of it for the first, oh yeah, okay. So and I think you probably experienced a little bit of that too when you put your editor hat, take your editor hat off
Yeah.
and just
Yep.
can enjoy it. I remember sitting next to this guy who taught voice lessons and musical stuff. And we were at this church, and I don't know, they had some people up there singing. I said, he said, man, they're terrific. And he says, yeah, he says, but on this part right here, they were a little pitchy or something like that.
Yeah.
And he says, I hate when I do that because it's hard for me to enjoy it because I'm critiquing it. See?
Yeah.
And so that was his book. I for the first time here in the last 6. And let me say this now, since everything is energy, I got quote back into the book.
Yeah.
And then I've had a bunch of sales because of my energy being in
Yeah.
it. See, it
Yeah.
almost kind of like stopped, but me reading it, putting energy to it, then pop, 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 pop. Just
Yeah.
shows you that, because we all look at people. I think one of the best examples, I got 2 cousins in Marathon, Florida. One of them had an IQ of 145 and died an alcoholic, homeless, just about.
Yeah.
And my other cousin, his brother, put an X for his name, was a hard worker and believed he was the world's best fisherman. He ended up working his way up, ended up owning the fish company down there, probably worth anywhere from 15 to 20 million bucks.
Yeah.
But he felt that way. So whatever you feel, you can't argue with someone's thought system because the world will prove them right.
Yeah.
This is giving you a different thought system, a different way of looking at pain. And when you look at it differently, the world's going to show up different for you because all the
Yeah.
world does is show you what you're thinking, and you are always right.
Yeah. So do you want to tell them about the X Factor, or you want them to read the book to find out what it is?
Well, the X factors, I mean, it's pretty simple. Yeah, we'll tell them. I don't. It's just love. That's the main
Yeah.
ingredient. A you look at things as frequency. If you're angry, now this is out of a book, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, and he measured energy. So the frequency of anger and revenge and fear is a frequency of about 150. The frequency of love and gratitude is a frequency of 450 to 550 on the
Yeah.
scale that he come up with. So if you create things at a frequency of 150 to say 200, you will attract things in your life that beat to that frequency.
Yep.
When you raise your energy to a frequency of love and gratitude, you attract things that resonate with that. So that's why it's about, and I'm going to tell you something, if you don't raise your energy, these shifts that are present now, it's going to feel very uncomfortable for you. Very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And Western medicine is not going to be able to help you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to change it energetically. That's the only thing that's going to work.
Yeah. It's if a person has been waiting, putting it off till you possibly can for whatever reason,
Yeah.
it,
The wait is over.
it's over.
Can't procrastinate any longer.
I don't even know how you've made
Yeah.
how you made it this far, but I think
Right.
there's a difference too. People like me and you, Gene, this has been our life focus
Yeah.
since
Mhm.
forever, right?
Right.
It's, you know, we've known this was part of our reason for coming here, even if we didn't know
Mhm.
the full spectrum of, like, I knew it for myself personally, right? I didn't know the whole planet was coming along with me
Was
on this
it?
ride for the
Right.
last few years. I that never crossed my path. And believe
Mhm.
me, I looked everywhere. So it showed up
Right.
at just the right time for me.
It has.
And if
Yeah.
you're watching this today, this is just the right time for you,
That's right.
you
Sure is.
know? So we've been talking for a while now, and what I'd love to do is a i- have you share where people can reach you. I'll put the information in the description, and um but one miracle,
At
uh
Comcast.net is my email.
yeah,
And
people can find the book on.
Amazon or order it from me. And I want to say Andrea did a wonderful job. She's the one who put it on Amazon and helped me get it in print. She did all those steps there. So it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. um but beyond that, I would really like us to give people a taste of that love, of that X factor. So
Right.
let's just take a couple minutes, and I want to invite, if you're watching this, listening to this, allow yourself to settle in, get comfortable, and experience, if you choose, a, a beautiful bit of quantum love and healing that Gene and I are going to offer for you. So, and inviting your highest self, your highest aspects to come in and show you what you need. So, we're going to take a couple minutes here, and we're going to just sit quietly. And if there's a question on your heart right now for yourself, ask that question. And through this energy, may you receive a release of any blocks. May you receive the answers you're looking for. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Gene, for being here. And yeah, let's meet the challenge. Let's be the new human.
Mhm. Yeah. So let's open up our heart and take a big chance on love, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, for watching, and connect with Gene. If you're interested in A Course in Miracles, he does a fantastic class on Wednesday nights on Zoom, and I'm sure he'd be thrilled to have you join him in his class. So beyond that, enjoy your hearts, enjoy your life,
Mhm.
and we'll catch you next time.
Okay. Thank you.